He dated Elizabeth Taylor, slept in the White House, and made millions. George Hamilton can barely pay his medical bills. At 85, the movie legend received tragic news. His disease has returned, his riches is gone, and he must sell his decades-old mansion. Dating the president's daughter to barely surviving. Nobody predicted this awful end. George Hamilton was born in Memphis in 1939. His mother was an Arkansas belle and his father a famous northern bandleader. The combination of huge city and southern charm would shape George's image. He relocated often as a child due to his father's music career. He became versatile and glamorous from early travel. His family was difficult, and he was the middle child. In 1944, everything changed. When George's father strayed with a band vocalist, the marriage ended miserably. His mother raised the kids alone during wartime. 5-year-old George. The split went beyond emotions. It affected his entire life. After leaving the family, his father stopped music to sell perfume in New York. He died young in 1957. From luxurious hotels and music to survival, George's youth changed swiftly. After their divorce, George and his siblings moved in with their grandparents in Blytheville, Arkansas. Life was peaceful briefly. He finally had a safe home. He grew close to his grandparents and learned Southern politeness that would last a lifetime. In 1947, both grandparents died. Finally, stability departed. Without money or help, his mother had 3 boys to care for. Not having any options, she was desperate. She flicked a coin. The heads would relocate to NYC. Tails, they'd try Hollywood. It touched down in Hollywood. One coin flip altered everything. They packed for California. George was 8. Hollywood felt like a calling. Path was still rough. The East Coast was their next relocation by 1950. George switched schools before attending Gulf Coast Military Academy in Mississippi. That military academy influenced him. It taught him discipline, posture, charm, and everything else he'd become famous for. He stood out with his composure and manners. Despite his polished exterior, his private life was grim. He still struggled with his stepmother's twisted relationship, which began before his teens. He kept it secret for decades. Everything changed at 19 in 1958. George had an MGM screen test. A high school acting award and charisma were his only training. Despite being broke, he obtained an agent who liked his appearance. MGM tried him. His $500 in part in Crime and Punishment, USA were meager, and the filmmakers didn't want him. George astonished everyone, even if they favored Anthony Perkins. Critics were surprised by his intense performance. He played a law student who shoots a pawnbroker and feels guilty. George made the persona cold and fragile. That role earned him a Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer. He was nominated for BAFTA. Hollywood didn't believe him. He had to bribe someone with Jack Daniels to appear on TV. That's how uncertain business was. You'll become famous one day. You plead for work next. He made another risky move around this time. His tanning began. Permanent, rich, deep. It was branding, not vanity. George sought attention in a community full of gorgeous guys. Tan made him easily recognizable. It eventually became his trademark. He joked with John Derek about who could get darker. George identified with his skin tone. He joked about it, owned it, and used it to stay relevant once his acting roles ended. The 1960 film Where the Boys Are followed. George portrayed a posh college student. The movie was popular. It was simple, romantic, and timely for a changing America. The movie omitted the book's political undertones. George considered it a ridiculous film, but moviegoers enjoyed it. He even improvised a famous moment by creating a question mark on the sand with his co-star. His heartthrob status was confirmed that moment. The picture subtly depicted larger societal shifts in American sex and romance. Academics still discussed George's influence in gender, courtship, and pop culture decades later. The Johnsons, America's most powerful family, noticed his Hank Williams performance in 1965. That led him to a White House dinner with Linda Bird Johnson, daughter of the president. She was quiet, bookish, and presidential royalty. His Hollywood roots made him confident and polished. Somehow, they connected. George later remarked he could see her wild side behind her calm exterior. Their romance made headlines nationwide. They attended red carpets, visited Acapulco, celebrated Easter at the LBJ Ranch, and grabbed the attention at the Academy Awards. She didn't need a watch because she had a Hamilton, Bob Hope joked. But not everyone was happy behind the scenes. Lyndon B. Johnson hated it. He distrusted George. He worried about more than a Hollywood actor dating his daughter. His suspicions went deeper. Thus, he did what no father should. An FBI probe was ordered. This went beyond background checks. This was personal. The president questioned FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover to investigate George's life. They wanted to know about his pals, credit cards, family, and sexuality rumors. George's brother's homosexuality alone made him fear the worst. In that age, a hint of homosexuality could ruin careers. FBI persistently dug. Nothing bad happened, but they continued. An unexpected hunting expedition at the president's ranch was the oddest moment. The White House called George. Texas awaited him. No queries. After landing, Johnson brought him into the woods, handed him a gun, and stared at him like this wasn't about deer. George had to think quick. He cooperated, shot the gun, and impressed the president. Johnson smiled and called him Daniel, comparing him to Daniel Boone. The situation was clear to George. This wasn't hunting. A test. Test of manhood. A loyalty test. Test of control. Another storm was coming. His draft status. George claimed he supported his mother and brothers to avoid military duty. But reporters and officials sensed a falsehood. At least his mother lived like royalty in Beverly Hills. Already outraged over Vietnam, the president found this unacceptable. George couldn't avoid the draft and date his daughter. Though Johnson didn't say anything, the message was plain. Join the war or leave my family. Pressure became too much. The romance ended late 1966. The twist. No bridges burned for George. George smiled during Linda's 1967 wedding to Marine Captain Charles Robb, posing for photos like a Hollywood premiere. He maintained in touch with the couple afterward. Even when Robb became Virginia governor, George was welcomed. The Robb saw George perform in Washington, D.C., in 2012, long after the headlines faded. He subsequently revealed in his memoir that he looked at the ceremony and thought, "It might have been me." They invited him to dinner. The relationship persisted after decades. George Hamilton was the closest Hollywood actor to becoming the president's son-in-law for a brief, strange time in the 1960s. In the late 1970s, George's Hollywood star waned. An odd yet great twist followed. He played Count Dracula in Love at First Bite, a 1979 comedy. No one expected much, but Hamilton acted and produced it. The picture was unexpectedly successful. He went outrageous instead of serious. His Dracula joked and danced to disco. The public adored it. Hollywood now regarded him differently. As a gorgeous actor with good comic timing and business savvy. The film profited and revived Hamilton. He was bold in his personal life too. Hamilton married in 1972 in a movie-like manner. Alana Collins, his lover, came by to pick up her belongings when he was with Elvis Presley's manager, Colonel Tom Parker. She was returning to England by plane. Parker suggested they marry that day unexpectedly. They did on Elvis's private jet, in his suite. The maid of honor was a dog and the judge was waiting. Even time to play roulette. Hamilton returned home with a wife after losing $15,000. They fell in love in Acapulco years earlier after being unable to stand each other. It became something more between a pinch, a slap, and a whirlwind romance. Their son Ashley arrived 2 years later. Hamilton was a playboy who became a grounded father. The Medusa filming in Greece became a family honeymoon. Ashley would later act in Beethoven's Second and Iron Man 3. George and Alana raised him together after divorcing. George was more than a good parent to his son. He also befriended Alana's children from her second marriage to Rod Stewart. Though unconventional, the family worked. Most Hollywood divorces are chilly or tumultuous. Theirs wasn't. After splitting in 1975, George and Alana never truly moved on. Stayed best friends. They communicated daily. They ate dinner. Alana drove since George was always late. Nobody needed to remarry, but they joked about it. Their marriage was better than most. George said he'd missed something and realized it was her after the divorce. They went beyond being a relationship. Alana nailed it. I have his back and he has mine. George Hamilton faced another storm. George Hamilton came to the Philippines in 1979 to promote Love at First Bite, a vampire comedy. At the time, it was his career highlight. He was surprised to be invited to dine at the presidential residence with Imelda Marcos, the First Lady. One lunch became a global friendship full of splendor, secrets, and scandal. Hamilton captivated Imelda, and their relationship evolved swiftly. They shopped and traveled together. Even sung privately. What appeared to be a pleasant celebrity acquaintance turned dark. Hamilton met two of Imelda's close friends that year. Antonio Florendo, a Marcos-dealing businessman, and Glizzy Tantoco, Imelda's best friend and shopping agent. Not simply background figures. They were instrumental in a series of hidden dealings, dubious loans, and millions of money that ended up in Hamilton's hands. Hamilton borrowed $600,000 from Florendo in 1982. He said it was to refinance his Mississippi plantation, but the timing was suspicious. He visited the glamorous Manila Film Festival 2 months before. Grilled cows and $100 French champagne were served. Later, detectives found something much worse. Hamilton's accounts may have held $12 million. He even flew to Hong Kong to remove $5.5 million from Tantoco's bank account, which authorities suspected came from the Philippine Treasury. Soon later, he renovated his Beverly Hills house, creating a huge garage and adding residential space. They felt it was funded by the money. It continued. Imelda's team considered buying the neighboring property to increase Hamilton's estate. Some believed the residence was a Marcos property disguised under his name. Failure to make a film was the strangest twist. Hamilton wanted to film MacArthur. It started off as an action-packed battle narrative. Under Imelda's prodding, the script became a romantic drama about MacArthur's unrequited love for a Filipino woman. Hamilton called it humiliating. "I Shall Return" became a love message, not a war statement, he remarked. The film was never made, and the $5.5 million was surreptitiously returned to a Hong Kong bank. The whole enterprise was a front for money laundering to transport stolen funds throughout the world, prosecutors said. Hamilton was indicted federally in 1988. Not accused, he was named an unindicted co-conspirator in Imelda and Ferdinand Marcos's prosecution. His reputation suffered greatly. Hamilton denied being more than a friend in the press. He declined to do business with Imelda and attended her film festival out of respect. But the realities were messier. He admitted getting millions. He testified in court and defended the Marcoses after they were accused of stealing over $100 million from Filipinos. His attorneys tried to exonerate him. They labeled him a Southern gentleman who wouldn't discuss business with Imelda. They said he didn't know where the money came from and returned everything when he discovered something was incorrect. Behind the scenes, the tale didn't match. Hamilton's lender, Florendo, later revealed that Imelda had pulled all the strings. She determined money allocation, control, and use. Some believe Hamilton's residence was part of her secret empire. Hamilton testified that he never knew he was used and didn't see the red signals. Despite not being charged, the harm was done. His association with Imelda led him to one of the worst 20th century corruption scandals. A forgotten war movie may have covered up millions of dollars and harmed reputations. Poker Alice was filmed in the mid-1980s when something unexpected happened. George starred with Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor, yes. Their chemistry went beyond cameras. It affected actual life. Though they broke up after a year, they remained close. The true shock came later. Elizabeth sent George a breakup present. An authentic Cartier gold ace of hearts. "Dear George, I adore you despite your assholery" was written on the back. It amused George. It was more than a joke to him. A weird but nice way to communicate we're constantly connected. Elizabeth was strong, humorous, and memorable. George never forgot her. George had other beauties besides Taylor. George quietly revealed a bombshell in a 2009 reality show. At least 4 Miss World winners are his dates. Despite not naming individuals, his message was apparent. His type was global royalty in high heels. In the 60s and 70s, George was everywhere. Red carpets, film sets, magazine covers, always with a new beauty. In a joke, Burt Reynolds gave him a birthday card with a Tony Curtis Anthony Perkins photo mashup titled, "To George, Love from Mom and Dad." George found it humorous. He showed everyone. George met 20-year-old swimsuit model Kimberly Blackford in 1995, which changed his love life. George was 56. Hollywood shrugged, just George. This wasn't another fling. They produced a son named George Thomas Hamilton, GT, after 4 years together. George didn't wed Kim. Remained in his son's life. GT. Raised with old-school discipline. George sent him to a military academy like his older son Ashley. Father and son were far apart in age. 60 years. Everyone was surprised by their bond. GT. Became calm, ambitious, and polite. George saw it as a second opportunity at fatherhood. Even his ex-wife Alana Stewart stayed close. After their divorce, she married Rod Stewart and had Kimberly and Sean. Most people would leave then. Not George. He became Rod's kid's second father. It worked for some reason. Stewart and Hamilton's, a 2015 reality show, featured the blended family. It was odd, humorous, and surprisingly functional. Most days, George and Alana converse. They dine and joke like old friends. George is often late, so Alana drives. After many marriages and divorces, they found something like family. But George's life wasn't glamorous. He lost his left ear to measles as a child. He concealed well. Most were unaware. Later, doctors diagnosed permanent nerve damage. It should have ended there. However, Gloria Swanson, an old acquaintance, advised going to Switzerland. George attempted a stem cell treatment there before they became popular. It hurt, cost, and was off the grid. But it worked. Hearing returned slowly. In a month, he regained 95%. George said the facility was full of anonymous celebs sneaking in, expecting their miracle. It felt like a secret society of celebrities seeking one last fix. In 2025, George had another major fright. Failure of his heart valve. Most people would expect the worst at 86. Not George. After open heart surgery, he left the hospital 2 days later. Doctors couldn't believe it. He resumed walking, modest weightlifting, and stretching within weeks. His heart rate decreased to athletic levels. George attributed his success to his daily shake of kale, almonds, bananas, and other green superfoods. His doctors began chronicling his remarkable recovery for other patients. George did something unexpected. He started a skincare line. He was selling sun repair products after spending all his time in the sun. The George Hamilton skin care system guaranteed overnight wonders. One product promised to restore years of skin abuse as you slept. That assertion made dermatologists cringe, but buyers bought. First-year sales exceeded $4 million. George made malls red carpets. Attractive women with champagne and beauty advice. The light faded, like most trends. George's goods faded by 1993 when new celebrities entered the skincare game. He kept selling the sun. At the same time, he built a tanning parlor chain as doctors shouted about its cancer risks. George dissented. He claimed safer beds. It brought some color and delight. That was deadly nonsense, say experts. His salons broke in millions in California, Florida, and Arizona. That run ended too. After getting skin cancer, customers sued in 1992. Though George settled, the damage was done. The worst twist followed. He had skin cancer excised in 2011. The tanning empire vanished. George made a brilliant reappearance years later, when everyone thought he was gone. His 2016 title was KFC's Extra Crispy Colonel. Despite other performers pleading for opportunities, he got a multi-million-dollar ad campaign at 77 by embracing his tan and smiling at himself. While disguised as Colonel Sanders, he joked about sun damage. It works. The commercials went viral, sales rose, and George became relevant again. Not only a paycheck, but a self-marketing masterclass. Commercials didn't end that comeback. UK reality show I'm a Celebrity hired him in 2009. Get Me Out of Here, and My Jungle Survival charmed a new audience. He didn't win but didn't need to. He departed with millions more followers and TV offers. Stewart's and Hamilton's, his 2015 reality show, showed his uncommon blended family. Though brief, the show was effective. It highlighted his adolescent son, GT, and reminded everyone that George Hamilton was still a brand to watch. He made headlines again in early 2025 for packing and returning to Palm Beach, not acting. Most assumed it was for the weather or nostalgia at 85. The truth was darker. Unscrupulous company manager duped him into bogus real estate ventures, costing him $12 million over 4 years. Due to Florida's liberal asset rules, George might secure what was left by moving there. He quickly turned a near bankruptcy into another brilliant shift. He returned to local social life, joked about running for mayor, and proved he could handle anything. George has also self-aged. He doesn't mention slowing down at nearly 86. He treats turning 100 like another chapter. It starts at 5:30 a.m. daily. Meditation and swimming. He eats Mediterranean style. Curiosity fuels his filmmaking. Health issues didn't stop him. They pushed him harder. His narrative goes beyond reinvention. Family matters too. George says he raised his 2 sons differently. George's first son, Ashley, was born during his highest fame. George was rarely seen. The birth of his younger son, GT, at 60 changed things. His pace slowed. Showed up and prioritized parenting. They traveled the world, created trust, and appeared on a reality show. He claims GT offered him a second chance at parenthood in life. Politics has always followed him. He gained White House connections in the 1960s by dating President Johnson's daughter. He kept his interactions with both parties classy and neutral over the years. His son GT is entering politics to promote reform and carry the Hamilton name forward.